Perfect. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our joint webinar on safeguarding food security in Europe. My name is Natasha Vlahu from Rezos branch, partner of the EFF-CoP project, and I will be your moderator today. So, today we bring together 4 Horizon projects to explore how food security is challenged by fraud, CBR, and cyber threats, as well as crisis risks, and how we can respond collectively. We'll start with project presentations, followed by an interactive discussion and live polling. So let's begin. As we move to the presentations, I invite each speaker to focus on one key question. How does your project contribute to safeguarding food security? First, I invite Ben Moore from SecureFood project. Ben is a senior EU project manager with Car Communications Ltd and communication and dissemination manager responsible for the overall development of the SecureFood brand, coordinating impactful communications on behalf of the project, creating communication and dissemination materials, engaging with stakeholders, and promoting ongoing activities and project results. So Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I'm just going to share my presentation here. If you bear with me one moment. Okay. Can everyone confirm that they can see my current introductory slide on the screen?
It's perfect, Ben.
Yes.
Perfect, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to everyone that has joined today. It's great to see so many participants from such a diverse range of sectors. As mentioned, my name is Ben Moore, and I am the Communication and Dissemination Manager for the SecureFood project. So in today's presentation, I'll be taking you through an overview of SecureFood, the innovative tools and solutions that are part of our project, and as well as how you can get involved in informing our research work and results. So just to give you a very brief overview of SecureFood and what it is, SecureFood represents an integrated approach to enhancing food systems resilience and advocating for food security and an uninterrupted food supply. It's a 42-month project under the Farm to Fork call, funded by the EU over 3.5 years with a budget of just under 8 million. And we're comprised of 25 partners from across Europe and their affiliate organizations. So looking at why SecureFood matters and how it looks to address vulnerabilities in the food system and the broader picture of food security. Food systems today function as a complex global network. So what happens in one part of the world, whether it's a drought, a trade restriction, or a logistics delay, can have ripple effects across entire regions. So these are the key pressures undermining food security. Europe's reliance on external trade, for example, makes our food supply sensitive to geopolitical or market disruptions. Over the past few years, these vulnerabilities have been impossible to ignore. During COVID-19, for example, we saw transport bottlenecks, labor shortages, and even temporary shortages of essential goods on our grocery shelves. So events such as these highlight how quickly local or regional crises can escalate into global instability. Sorry. So what SecureFood does then is to directly contribute to the goals of these strategies by helping translate policy ambition to practical evidence-based tools and frameworks that can strengthen Europe's ability to anticipate, absorb, and recover from future disruptions. So a recent major example of one such vulnerability is in the area of geopolitics. As we have seen recently with tensions involving Iran, geopolitical instability not only affects the countries that are directly involved. Because modern food systems are so highly interconnected, shocks in one region can ripple throughout the global supply chain. So one of the first areas we see this occurring is in energy markets. When fuel prices increase, the cost of transporting food rises as well, which can quickly translate into higher prices for producers, retailers, and ultimately consumers. At the same time, trade routes and logistic networks can be disrupted, which slows the movement of goods and creates delays across supply chains. These pressures can also contribute to volatility in global food markets, where uncertainty can drive sudden changes in commodity prices. So when taken together, these factors illustrate how food systems are deeply linked to global stability and why improving resilience, preparedness, and security is becoming an increasingly important priority. So now that we've looked at why our food systems are vulnerable, let's turn to how SecureFood is addressing these challenges. The foundation of SecureFood is scientific knowledge that is both new and existing. We're bringing together research from across disciplines to understand what makes food systems resilient and how that resilience can be measured and strengthened. But resilience isn't something that can be achieved by science alone. It's also about collaboration. SecureFood takes a multi-actor approach involving policymakers, producers, industry, and civil society to make sure that the tools and frameworks we develop are realistic, inclusive, and are reflective of real-world needs. And then finally, we're complementing that science and collaboration with technology. SecureFood is developing digital tools that will help to analyze vulnerabilities, model future scenarios, and support decision-making, which enables users to test different resilience strategies, forecast disruptions, and monitor system performance. So when taken together, these three pillars form the backbone of SecureFood's approach to food security and resilience. They're interconnected and mutually reinforcing, allowing the project to bridge research, policy, and practice to strengthen Europe's food systems for the long term. Then just having a quick look at some of the major key exploitable results for SecureFood for food system resilience. We have our SecureFood Resilience Governance Framework, which is a public-private governance to align strategic goals for food security and resilience. We also have our digital tools for data management, decision support, and information exchange, which secures data management, decision support, and digital twins for scenario analysis. And then, of course, we have the Food System Resilience Management Framework, which is a structured approach to strengthen collaboration across regional, national, and EU food systems stakeholders. At the heart of SecureFood, there lies a set of 4 dynamic case studies that serve as co-creation hubs to demonstrate, test, and validate and refine the project solutions. These proposed solutions include the project's frameworks, models, and digital tools across different food supply chains, regions, and levels of disruption. In essence, these case studies form the cornerstone of the project's co-developed approach, which brings together technical partners and stakeholders to ensure that the solutions developed are practical, impactful, and aligned with both the real-world needs and challenges faced by end users. Each case study focuses on a specific food supply chain and distinct geographic context, providing a representative cross-section of the broader European food system, from grain production affected by the war in Ukraine, for example, to the handling of perishable fruits in Portugal. Each case study will guide the development of the SecureFood solutions, including, among others, the digital twins, the early warning systems, resilience modeling, and the observatory dashboards. And then lastly, in our presentation, we wish to invite all participants today to please consider joining SecureFood's dedicated extended stakeholder group. The extended stakeholder group is a collaborative platform that has been designed to foster knowledge exchange, inclusive dialogue, and stakeholder-driven innovation in the field of food security and sustainability, bringing together a diverse community of stakeholders from across Europe and beyond, inclusive of representatives from industry, academia, policymaking bodies, and civil society. The group really plays a central role in our project to help ensure that SecureFood's research and outcomes are grounded in real-world needs, experiences, and priorities. So the main aim really of the extended stakeholder group is to support our project by gathering contributions, expertise, and feedback and perspectives throughout the project lifecycle, with members engaged in things like consultations, validation activities, and interactive events that help to inform the project's research design, methodologies, and outputs. The extended stakeholder group members actively contribute to SecureFood through participation in workshops that are linked to the development of the resilience governance framework, user requirement validation activities, and things like project-wide surveys. So this sustained engagement really helps us as a project to commit to collaborative knowledge generation and the co-creation of solutions addressing complex food system challenges. As you'll see here on the right-hand side of the slide, we have a QR code that will take you directly to our brand new dedicated extended stakeholder page where you can find more information on what it is, how you can get involved, and how you can sign up, as well as our social media handles here for anyone that is interested in keeping up to date with the project's news, research, and results. So that is everything from my presentation for the SecureFood project today. Thank you very much for your attention, and my contact details are there at the bottom of the slide if anyone would like to reach out directly to the project.
Thank you, Ben. That was very interesting. Next, we have Professor Saskia van Roof. She's a professor of food supply chain integrity at University College Dublin School of Agriculture and Food Science, specializing in food fraud prevention and authentication technologies, and also coordinator of the EFF-CoP project. Saskia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Natasha. I'll start sharing my screen at the same time letting people in. So it's a bit of multitasking at the moment. It's my pleasure to introduce the European Food Fraud Community of Practice to you all, for those who are not familiar with the initiative yet. And it's all about connecting people to tackle food fraud in Europe and beyond. It's not doing what I would like it to do. Right, it's about food fraud, and food fraud is a deliberate mismatch between the food product and its label to deceive customers for economic gain. And that's a bit different from security in general, but it's certainly an aspect with a high human component. This human adversary is probably what all these projects have in common when we talk about food security and food defense, food fraud, etc. And my personal research area is primarily to conceptualize food fraud, to understand which factors play a role and how they interact, and that all in view of prevention and disruption. And this type of behavior, being not so honest, is very common. And that's why I would like to share this publication with you, which is about economic crime among UK adults. And in this study, it was shown that about 26% of the adults in the UK commit at least one economic crime every year. And that its rate is higher in males and in younger people. And when people get older in general, the number of offenses will decrease. But in general, it's probably quite human to be dishonest. And in terms of food fraud, that dishonesty plays a large role. Some people are crossing the lines, and there have been a lot of projects also in the past, food integrity, net, for instance, authentic food, spiced over the last 10-15 years. A lot of European projects working on food fraud prevention and detection, and developing all kinds of innovations in EU context, but also nationally. However, the implementation of that science is sometimes a bit weak. So what we know and what we do is not the same thing. There have been methods based on analytical fingerprints developed for more than 20 years, whereas the uptake in laboratories is still quite limited. The number of that kind of methods that have been really accredited and so will hold in court there's just a handful of them. around Europe in commercial labs. So that is something where there's certainly a gap between what has been developed and what we really can use in practice. And to some extent, the issue here is that we may not be connected so well. And some groups are, like the Food Industry Intelligence Network, that work together, collecting food fraud testing data and creating new intelligence. For instance, there's the food fraud network of the regulators, but are those groups, also connected with each other? And to give you an example here, you see on the left-hand side that train, and I know from experience that academia and contract research, they are well connected to each other. They know what they're doing, and also connected to large food manufacturers in general, because there's some funding there to gain. But the connection with regulators, with caterers, with small food businesses or with customs is much, much weaker. So, and that is why this European Food Fraud Community of Practice comes in. It is the aim of the European Food Fraud Community of Practice that started on the 1st of January last year to enhance food fraud prevention and detection, and especially to facilitate encounters like these today, and create new conversations between organizations and the existing networks. And on the other hand, the aim is also to put resources together, resources on food fraud prevention, detection, research, innovations, but also training courses, for instance, and other materials. And we hope to sustain that community and this community of practice for the future. So there are in the real world, it looks a bit like this Lego. There are certain groups that work already together on food fraud prevention, but there are also a lot of people and organizations that are more or less on their own. And certainly we operate a bit in silos. So what we try to do is, on the one hand, create this repository with important information to share, and on the other hand, to organize a lot of interactive virtual and live events and sustain that for the future. Now, we started, I mentioned already, in January last year with a very lively kickoff in Amsterdam with the core of this Horizon Europe initiative, which consists primarily of different types of organizations, like the Food Industry Intelligence Network, like the Food Authenticity Network, like representatives of the Food Fraud Network, to grow this community quickly. At the end of June, we had people participating from 41 different countries, and at the moment it's over 3,000 members from 90 different countries in the world. We still need to work a bit on Africa, I think, but otherwise we're doing quite well trying to connect these people. Then we are certainly starting all these conversations in different places, both virtually as live in a pub here in Dublin a year ago, in different conferences, in sometimes separate sessions of events, but also online with a number of webinars and roundtables. So it's about 200% engagement. But as I mentioned, there's also databases that will be available soon, where we are working on in this initiative with all kinds of repositories. So keep an eye out for that. But the best is yet to come, and I would like to introduce that, and some of you will join, and that's the Authentic Food Festival and Conference on the 27th and 28th of May in Dublin. You can still register, there's still some seats available, and you can follow this link, EFF-CoP.eu/festival, where you find all the information on the festival, as well as a link for registration. So I would say, let's go, come all to Dublin and join this lively event with a lot of different sessions, traditional conference sessions, but also a lot of interactive clinics, an escape the fraud room, a serious game, films with discussion forums, etc. So if you are also interested in joining EFF-CoP, you can go to the website to find more or join us on LinkedIn. And that is our main form of communication. And you're very welcome to join us. So that concludes my presentation for today, Natasha. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Saskia. Moving on, our next speaker is Professor Chris Elliott. His main role in Export Food project is to provide strategic scientific leadership by integrating his expertise in food safety, food defense, food fraud, and supply chain resilience to ensure that cybersecurity risks are effectively embedded within modern threat assessment and critical control points-based risk management frameworks for digitally connected food systems. Chris, the floor is yours.
Again, just check you can see the screen okay?
Perfect, Chris.
Thank you. So it's really nice to follow on after Saskia. Because I'm also a member of the EFF-CoP project, but also what we are looking at in SecureFood, it's really another form of fraud, of food fraud. It's really about criminal activity, about cyber crime that's really many businesses and industries are facing now. So when we think about some of the challenges that are facing our industries across the EU and UK, there are issues about supply chain disruptions. Ben talked about those very nicely. Saskia talked about issues in terms of food fraud. There's issues about traceability, but there are also major cybersecurity risks. And all of these things are totally interrelated with each other. And that's why it's really so nice to get the overview of all of these different projects working in very similar domains, actually coming together. So, question, why is cybersecurity important? Well, what we are now in the world of digitization, of AI, we hear about these things virtually every day of the week. So as more and more supply chains, food systems become digital and interconnected, they actually become much more vulnerable to cyber crime. And the criminal activity in the food system through digital systems can really bring about catastrophic failures. It can not only affect one part of the supply chain, but right across supply chains. And it can even impact food safety. If you've got rogue elements, some people who are thinking about the manipulation of temperatures. So for instance, pasteurization of milk. Can you imagine what happens if milk isn't pasteurized at the right temperature? If recipes are changed, it can lead to really big food safety incidents. And that's kind of what we're looking into at the moment. So where we sit at the moment, we have collected together quite a few case studies of cybercrime that have affected different areas of food supply just over the past couple of years. But last week, I was actually talking to a senior representative of the food industry. He told me in their estimates is that something like 40% of all food businesses have had some sort of cyber attack within the last 3 years. 40% of businesses have been attacked. Some of these we hear about, and I'll just walk through a few of the case studies, but most of them we don't hear about. And why don't we hear about them is the companies basically don't want to tell people that they've been victims of a cyber attack. It's bad for their reputation. It can be bad for their share price, bad for trust in their companies. Sometimes it is that the cyber attacks are dealt with quite early in the attack phase itself. And actually, sometimes what we believe is that the ransoms are being paid by companies, and a growing number of companies are actually paying to the criminals. Marks and Spencers was a pretty big case study that happened in the UK last year. I think it became very public facing because people basically could not go online and buy virtually anything from Marks and Spencers. It cost the company over 400 million euros to deal with the problem. It was enormous. And, here's another example of a chilled food company that was subject to a ransomware attack as well. So it's another part of a supply chain. A supermarket that specialized in cold chain. Guess what? Open to another attack, and this really led to a lot of food spoilage, a lot of food waste. Here we've got one which was about another ransomware attack for another European company. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And it's when I see things like this, when infant formula is being attacked with leading to potential contamination, then we really realize how serious it is, just not from an economic perspective, but actually from a public health perspective. I'm involved in a project actually in the UK where companies are starting to come together and really think about having to develop a solution, not just on a company basis, but right across supply chains and people that work with each other. I think probably quite a lot of people on the meeting will have heard of HACCP and heard of TACCP. TACCP is about really analyzing the threats across your supply chains, across the critical control points. What we are really doing within our project is trying to, I think, rethink TACCP in forms of TACCP really has to deal with your digitization of supply chains to try to minimize and mitigate against the threats. So in terms of Act4Food, what is it we're actually trying to do? And it is about extending TACCP, extending it to advanced cybersecurity approaches that will, as with the other projects, about ensuring safe and resilient and continuous food supply systems. Now, I could go through lots and lots and lots of different objectives of the project, and you probably won't remember most of them. So what I've tried to do is summarize our project, what we're aiming to do, support a secure, resilient, and transparent food supply system. How? And this is by protecting operational technologies, enabling data sharing, strengthening traceability, and ensuring regulatory compliance, which is a really big deal in this domain. So really thinking about how we can take TACCP into a cyber-enabled framework. And we want to build this culture of cybersecurity awareness, not just wait until companies get attacked and then try to deal with the massive problems. So again, we have a really wonderful partnership. It is very technology based, lots of really cool companies doing lots of different technology based systems in different parts of Europe. And what Act4Food has really done is bringing these together to try to produce a very, very holistic solution to cyber threats. So it's about enhancing cyber resilience, making sure that there's regulatory alignment, secure data, and real-time responses to these cyber threats right across supply chains. So that's really our project. It fits really phenomenally well with the first two already presented. As with SecureFood, we've got a number of case studies which are in development at the moment. We're looking at cold supply chains, we're looking at complex supply chains, and again, trying to come up with some solutions to real world problems. So that's all for me for Act4Food. So thank you very much. And back to our master, Natasha.
Thank you, Chris. Lovely presentation. Moving on, finally, we have Akos Yozyak that will present DEFENSEFOOD project. Akos is the head of Food and Nutrition Science and AI at Syrian Research Institute at Budapest, Hungary. And he is the scientific coordinator of the DEFENSEFOOD project, also leading the efforts on risk prediction and shock anticipation with computational methods. Akos, let's hear it from you.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me introduce you to the DEFENSEFOOD project as the fourth project in this webinar series. So our project just started at the end of last year, and we spent over 4 years in delivering our project deliverables. And it is coordinated by the Sustainable Criminal Justice Solutions in the UK, and our institute and myself are the scientific coordinators of this project. We are 13 different institutes across Europe, and let me introduce a bit of to a theoretical background of what are we doing and why are we doing what we're doing. So, as it was already said today, I think multiple times, that we face a lot of challenges, but I want to highlight one specific aspect of the food systems, and this is that these are being very complex systems in a mathematical term or in a complexity science term, which means that there are many interactions between many different entities. There are a lot of feedback mechanisms and feedback loops. If something happens in one part of the food system, it will have certainly an effect to other parts of the food system. And in principle, complex systems are very hard to analyze and predict. And what makes this even more interesting from a food defense or food security perspective is that conventionally we focus on non-intentional contamination, which are driven by the rules of biology and chemistry and physics. And these are somewhat easier to describe and predict. However, when we talk about intentional attacks, we are facing also socioeconomic, psychological, and other drivers, which are harder a bit to describe and predict as well. So this is like the starting position. And when we started to define or design what exactly what we want to do in this area of intentional attacks and food defense, we also had to realize that conventionally we focus on prevention because this is the most cost-effective way of dealing with unintentional different risks. And one of the key features of prevention and unintentional contaminations is robustness, which is a resistance to change, how well a system resists external factors or internal factors of or drivers of change. However, when we would like to better understand and better deal with intentional attacks, we usually have to use other concepts like resilience, which is focusing on adaptation, how well or how quickly a system gets back to its original state. And usually the robustness and prevention approaches are focusing on risks which are predictable. And resilience approaches usually focus on the risks or agents which are unpredictable or emerging issues. And this is the domain actually where we are working in or working with. So basically what we need to acknowledge is that these intentional attacks will happen. And our aim is obviously, beside prevention and beside kind of preventing these events from happening as much as possible, but we still need to embrace that idea that these will happen. And what we can do is that we ensure that the system is resilient to these shocks, meaning that these intentional attacks are discovered as quick as possible, and the systems we design or we help them to get back to their original state, or in an ideal situation, even to a better state than they were before. And this is just a figure or a graph depicting how different timelines operate when there is a systemic shock. Then we need some time to detect these different shocks or agents, and also we need time and the means to recover. And depending on how well we do it, these will be different responses and different effectiveness, so to say. So in the project, what we try to concentrate on is not to eliminate all these risks, but to enhance food systems' capacity to quickly recover and to adapt to these situations. And we have we have more work packages, but 5 work packages which concentrate on this very issue. And one of them is predicting or anticipating risks or understanding the underlying drivers behind intentional attacks on our food systems. There is another work package which focuses on lab detection methodologies, how we could identify, how we could detect as quickly as possible known and probably unknown or emerging risks as well. Also, we have a work package dealing with how these impacts could be minimized and the recovery could be as quick and as good as possible with different risk mitigation methods. Also, we want to be sure that these methods are channeled back into the food system, and the system is able to learn and adapt and on a longer time frame. So every incident, every intentional attack will come with a lesson learned and how we could make it sure that the same mistakes or the same attacks will not happen as quickly or as severely as before. And also we have a system designed which ensures that all the knowledge which is generated in the project, but also all the knowledge which is generated outside of the project in this subject matter, is gathered in a systematic and continuous and as much as possible automatic way, and spread this knowledge and information for better adaptation. We try to approach a systemic approach and a complexity science approach in many ways, dealing with all the complexity of the chain. We have 3 use cases which we selected for demonstrating some of our methodologies, and these 3 are cereals, shellfish, and water. And these, obviously, you could imagine why we selected these. And the reason is that these are quite vulnerable to intentional attacks in many ways. Also, they deal with the different parts of the CBR agent world, so chemical, biological, and radiological contaminations. These 3 supply chains are a bit different from that perspective. And also they have a very widespread and immense effect on other food supply chains as well, if you think about water or even cereals. And what we want to achieve is in this picture. I don't want to read out all these our objectives, but the point is that we would like to use as much as possible AI or data-driven methodologies, also to work on rapid detections and novel methods in understanding both the environment and the drivers, but also the agents themselves. We would like to enhance cross-border or international cooperation and response, and improve the awareness and faster recovery for the industry and also for the authorities in a way. So if you want to engage, we have a very nice website already set up, and we are as I mentioned, we just started recently, and we are in a phase of understanding the broader environment, both the drivers, the agents themselves, the methods which are currently applied all over Europe and also beyond Europe. And then we will start exploring and digging deeply into resilience issues. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Argos. Please feel free to share in the chat, all of you, if you have like your social media or something that you would like to share with the participants. I would like to thank all speakers, and we can now move on to the interactive session that we have planned. Emanuela Avci from the DEFENSEFOOD project will launch a Mentimeter poll. So let me share the QR code. Emanuela, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
perfect.
hello everyone from me as well. Maybe I could share Natasha.
You want to share? Go ahead.
Yeah, the screen so that everyone see the Mentimeter. Give me a moment. Oh, you already joined. Okay, so screen. Yeah. Perfect. So welcome again to this webinar. To everyone that is not joined yet, here is, you can see the QR code. I see that we are joining. I hope all of the 87 of you join. Is someone talking? No, it's me. Okay, so let's move. Are you ready to join? Let me see these thumbs up or hearts so that I can move forward. Great, great. All right, so what do we want to know from you is to actually tell us how do different threats, fraud, cyber, or CBR threats undermine food security based on what you believe. So I would like from you to write a word. You have there like a submit. Here you are. So every time that someone is writing and then submitting, their answer is going to pop out. I see the word trust, so panic. Who's panicking? Yep. All right. So half of you have already answered, and the word that is popping out is the word trust, and then the words public health, safety, health, panic. But we have also quality, fee, fear, price, cost, fear, and safety. Those words someone of you have answered as well. Reduce trust, trust damaged, slow production. All right, all right. I'm waiting for a few more answers as well, and then we are going to move forward. Nice. So I guess the word that is coming to your minds when you hear different threats that undermine food security is the word trust and security. But the one that it has the most answers is the word trust. Perfect. And now let's find out, what do you believe when we say food security, and what dimension do you think first? Do you think food fraud, system resilience, CBR threats, or CBR security? Nice. Most of you think about system resilience. And we have as well food fraud and CBR threats, and no on cybersecurity.
There's one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just one.
just one. Oh, we have another one. Great. A second one. So I guess everyone is thinking about system resilience. Okay. I'm going to let a few more seconds so that we can have more answers, and then I'll give the floor to everyone. All right.
Yeah, I think we have all the answers. So Emanuela was kind enough to give us an overview of the results. So I'd like to invite our speakers now to reflect what stand out.
This cybersecurity issue.
I think I lost you a little bit. I'm sorry, my connection.
Yeah, you were frozen.
I'm sorry. Let me
Nothing.
repeat that I'd like to invite the speakers to reflect on what the participants responded. What did stand out to you, and do these perceptions align with your project findings? Who wants to, let's say, give the first response?
Thanks, Natasha. I'll give the first response.
Perfect.
I guess no surprise that food resilience comes up top, because actually fraud, cyber, they're all part of resilience. So it's like a very complex jigsaw puzzles, and those are the various pieces. And also trust. Generally, whenever there is a food crisis, a food scandal, the first thing that is lost is consumer trust. Even if it doesn't affect food safety, like the horse meat scandal, people's trust. And it is in business, they say it takes a long time to gain people's trust, and you can lose it very, very quickly.
I couldn't agree more, Chris. Like in every relationship, not only in business.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, maybe I could jump in. I agree with Chris that trust and resilience are very high-level concepts, and absolutely true what was said. And also, I think the group itself, the audience, pointed very rightfully to these concepts. But also, we need to identify which are the elements of both trust and resilience, and how trust is disrupted. What is the mechanism of disruption and what can lead to it? What are the detrimental effects of trust? Because it is detrimental, obviously, for the businesses, but also it's very much to the consumers and the state or the authorities as well. And with lost trust, it's very hard also to implement risk mitigation actions, which would regain trust, but it's very hard to implement them if there's no trust. So all these elements, all the fine details, I think are very, very interesting and important to understand, both from risk perspective, but also from behavioral science and sociological perspective, that how these mechanisms work. So that would be my addition to the discussion.
Thank you, Akos. Saskia, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. Regarding that last question, I think resilience is more a sort of umbrella term.
Yeah.
And easier to choose. And on the other hand, I think the cybersecurity had only, I mentioned one, and later there were two of them. But it's also very new to us in food supply chains, and in perhaps also in the research world. In the past, we were considering food defense, but more from the perspective that someone would put a toxic ingredient in a product. But if you think of it, if you can manipulate, the ICT in food businesses as you like, what kind of safety problems you could create in another country. I think it's certainly something to be aware of, and I think should definitely be on the research map for the future. Yeah, that there were only 2 that pointed at it may demonstrate more that it's a new topic and something we should really focus on in the next decade. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree, Saskia. Maybe it's a term that many participants, let's say, are not very familiar with, and what does it represent also. It's difficult to understand it. I don't know, we could focus on that for our next webinar, maybe. And Ben, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I'll just be quite quick and just building on what the previous speakers have said there. So, of course, it was interesting to see that trust was the most prominent word there during the Mentimeter poll. Trust is obviously, and again, particularly for speaking from SecureFood, is a really foundational element of food security. So across the entire food system, right from production all the way up to policy and consumers, everything really depends on the confidence that the system is safe and transparent and reliable. So then what we see when things like fraud or cyber incidents occur is that they aren't just creating operational disruptions, they're also undermining the trust. So once that trust is weakened, you can see those ripple effects and how significant they can be, and the effect that they're having even now, as I mentioned earlier on in my presentation on the current crisis in Iran, how a regional disruption can affect behaviors, markets, and crisis response across the entire food supply chain. So I think that's why strengthening that resilience isn't only about the technical safeguards that are put in place, but also about actively maintaining and reinforcing that trust that the entire food system really relies on to work effectively.
Thank you, Ben. I think Leo Hoja wants to comment.
Yeah, Johan knows better, actually. That's I just wanted to say yes, it's umbrella of resilience. That's true, and I agree with that. But I'm, as a cybersecurity expert, I just wanted to say about that how important the cybersecurity in under that unit umbrella. It's really plays right now the crucial role like helping the system, the resilience within the modern food systems, as initiatives like SecureFood emphasize the need to protect increasingly like digitalized supply chains from the disruption. So from like, for example, the farm management software or authorized processing facilities to logistics tracking and retail systems, food production today relies heavily on technologies, actually, like interconnected technologies that are vulnerable, vulnerable, and also the banks and others are very worried about the things, and they are, especially in Nordic countries now, people were using before only the credit cards or something. Now they're calling everyone to use some cash or something, or you have to reserve some cash for unexpected situations. So contaminating, the data, disruptions, or even compromised food safety, leading to economic losses and risk to public health. I think it's really important. It's an integrating reducing cybersecurity measures such as monitoring, data protection, incident response planning. Food systems can better withstand and adapt and recover from the disruption. So cybersecurity is not just an IT things, but a fundamental component of reliable, safe, and resilient food supply chain. I just wanted to say that one. But I agree with other, I just wanted to have some additional things.
Thank you. And I think Gertrude as well wants to comment.
I would like to share an observation that I have made in Germany recently, and I'm part of the DEFENSEFOOD project. And what I observed, for instance, there was the Munich Security Conference recently, and the food system was treated there as a separate topic, which is really interesting to note. And furthermore, what I also observed in Germany is that we use the term critical infrastructure, for instance, for buildings or for other infrastructure components like the railways and the streets and so on. And recently, this term has been expanded to the agricultural sector or to the food system. And this shows how aware the political side and the policy side is of the risks associated with the food system for the food security and food safety of its population. So I think this is really interesting, at least from my perspective. And I wanted to share that in general. And of course, I agree with all of what has been said before.
Thank you, Gertrude. Thank you very much for your comment. Peter.
Yeah, I'm mainly in the EFF-CoP project on food fraud, and I think there's a link to food security that we need to highlight, and that is that food fraud, we often think of the victim of food fraud as being primarily the consumer, who is given something less than what he or she paid for. But actually, there's a really strong link. One, I think the main victim of food fraud is the legitimate producer, the one who actually does organic, who does certified production, who has the added value, who is then undercut in the market by competitors who cheat and who misrepresent their products. And that has a long-term effect. In these companies do not survive, they go bankrupt. And then we have a food supply chain dominated by actors who are used to getting away by cheating. And that's in the long term, that undermines food security. If we're not careful about identifying and weeding out the actors who cheat and protecting the ones who actually go to the extra effort, then we'll have a food supply chain that is not very resilient at all. So it is very important to realize that an important victim, and I think honestly, the most important victim, are really the legitimate producers. They are the ones that we need to protect to have a resilient food system for the future.
Thank you, Peter. I think these are all the comments. So, Emanuela, do you think we can repeat the poll and see if the experts provided any, let's say, change of opinions or?
So, right. So welcome again. I will wait a few minutes for you all to join. So I'm moving forward and everyone can join in the meantime. So I'm guessing that you're ready. To anyone that haven't still participated, you can join from menti.com and use the code right here. So again, I will ask you, how do different threats undermine food security based, oh my God, the word trust is huge, based on what we commented, the feedback, and the what you have gained from the panel discussion? So I'm guessing again the word trust is huge, meaning that most of you have actually write this word. And a new one just popped out, which is reputation. Again, of course, we have resilience and safety. But I do see different answers, like reliability, nutritional impact, supply chain disruption, that they were not there before. But the main,
Business continuity.
yes. Oh, business continuity is huge. So I guess a little bit we changed what we thought. Right? And I'm moving. So we keep the words trust, reputation, that is a new one, business continuity, again, a new word, resilience and safety, that are the huge ones, meaning that most of you have answered. And moving on to what do we think when we hear the word food security? Do we think it's food fraud? Do we think system resilience, cybersecurity, or CBR threats? I guess system resilience have won both this Mentimeter poll.
Yeah, no big change here.
Yes, so I guess we have a slight change because in the previous poll we had most of you answer against system resilience, but CBR threats and food fraud and cybersecurity had only, I think, 2. And now CBR threats, they only have 1 answer. But again, system resilience is the first word that comes to your mind when food security pops out. All right.
That's so perfect, Emanuel. I don't see anybody else voting. Thank you very much for leading this discussion. And it's very interesting to see how opinions evolved, especially for the first part. And this highlights the value of a cross-project dialogue that we have been implementing today. So for the next few minutes, we are going to open the floor for questions from the participants to the project representatives, even if they are relevant to the presentation they presented or general questions that arise during this discussion. So please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions.
Pois é.
I think somebody is okay. So, Joris.
Yes. Can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes,
Hi. I have a question for Ben from SecureFood. Because I see that your project started in 2024, and since then there's been a lot happening, especially in Ukraine. Since you have a case study going on there, I wonder if you maybe could share some results from there with us, because I'm really interested how that war has affected the food supply chain there, and maybe if you could provide some insights into that.
Yeah, so I don't know if case study leader here for Ukraine is on this call, but I can just give you a kind of general overview from my perspective anyway, as the communication and dissemination manager. So Ukraine's grain sector, it's a quite a critical focal point in terms of food security, and especially now in the with the ongoing war that's still occurring in Russia in Ukraine. So what this case study in particular hopes to do is to examine those kind of structural shocks that are affecting Ukraine's grain sector, including kind of disrupted production and export routes through the Black Sea ports, and in turn that kind of resulting pressure on grain prices and the lack of real-time visibility as it relates to grain stocks. So in SecureFood, in collaboration with Ukrainian institutions and producers, transport operators, industry stakeholders, and consumers, what we hope to do with this specific case study in Ukraine is to apply our project's own ecosystem to analyze potential disruptions and test crisis response tools, and as well to explore resilient alternatives for grain transport. If you want, at any point, Joris, we would be happy to kind of put you in touch with our Ukrainian lead on the project here to kind of find out a bit more information about the ongoing work that's being done and the results, research, and work that comes from that. So yeah, we'll be happy to do that at any point if you wanted to reach out to us directly for a more kind of in-depth conversation or discussion of what's going on with that case.
It would be interesting. I'll reach out to you for
yes,
that.
super.
Yeah.
Please do. Thank you so much, Joris.
Thank you, Ben. Any other questions? Yes, Silverani? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to be polite. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Fantastic presentation, some really interesting projects. As with all of the European funded projects or things that have a finite lifetime, I just wonder what the longevity of some of these great tools that are being produced is going to be. And some of you may know that I lead the Food Authenticity Network, and I'm also part of the EFF-CoP project, leading Work Package 2. And we have biannual newsletters. So I'd be really interested in showcasing some of the projects in the newsletters or hosting some of the tools longer term on FAN, if that's a good route for longevity of these tools, because it's a shame that stakeholders potentially lose access to a lot of this really useful information as soon as the funding stops, which is unfortunately a reality of life. But the FAN's been around for 10 years and we hope it will be around for 10 more. So it's a really good platform for long-term access. Thank you.
Thanks, Silvia. And I'd be happy to share the contact emails from the other projects, of course. But does anybody want to comment on any tool that they would be happy to share with Silverani here now? I don't know.
They can think about it, Natasha, and we can email back and forth. Yeah.
Of course, that's going to happen anyway. Ben, I think you wanted to...
Just similar to what I said to Joris there in the last answer. Again, if anyone wants to reach out to us directly, happy to provide you with kind of more in-depth information, put you in touch with any of our project partners related to our tools, solutions, frameworks, always open to discussions of that nature. So.
I'll make the connection, Silverani. Don't worry. Chris.
Thank you, Natasha. So, first of all, to Ben, really interested in that Ukrainian case study, so I will absolutely follow up. I had to do some kind of risk modeling for a couple of governments on the likely impacts of that. I didn't use any great data sources. I just used my imagination, so it'll be interesting to see how that compares with what has really happened. And I think the second thing is, I think virtually all the projects are looking at different case studies. And I think there's a huge amount of overlap in those case studies as well. I think I heard fish mentioned maybe 3 times. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we kind of shared some information, some ideas about what we're doing in fish? Because that will really be like a 3-dimensional model that we're doing together. I think there would be huge benefit from that. So again, I mean, I picked up a lot of really useful information in this, so it's been helpful to me. So thanks for organizing it.
Thank you very much, Chris. Akos?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Just to pick on that, I also saw cereals in many of the projects besides fish and shellfish. So that would be also linking to Ukraine very much. So that this would be a very good idea to explore what commonalities and shared experience we could have. And the other thing, just to reflect on the long-term sustainability, we just started, as I mentioned, but still, I think this is a worthwhile discussion between the projects, that how we could also help each other's sustainability in hosting data or platforms, or sharing through our networks or the results. And also, just on a more practical side, I believe very much in automation. So some of the things what we could produce and we produce could run automatically or semi-automatically, still needs operation maintenance, but significantly less than in the past. So some of the tools, probably we could find easier a sustainable solution to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Akos. Ben, did you want to before? Because I think you wanted to say something and I jumped in.
Yeah, no, sorry. Just real quick on what Chris was kind of saying about fish and how that's kind of a commonality across all of the projects. So yeah, it's a really important part of SecureFood. It's one of our 4 major case studies. Obviously seafood is one of the world's most traded food commodities. So maintaining the traceability and supply chain as it relates to fish is definitely crucial. On SecureFood specifically, our case study examines the challenges that are facing fish and aquaculture more broadly in Greece and Belgium, and includes things like the marine pollution of the marine, climate-driven disruptions that are affecting marine ecosystems, and complexities and challenges that come with cold chain logistics. So just wanted to jump in, Chris, and just give you a bit more information on the fish and aquaculture side of what's going on in SecureFood.
Thank you, Ben. Saskia.
Yeah, I would like to add that in my other role as the coordinator of the EU cluster for food integrity and trust, and that is a collaboration on communication and dissemination primarily of about 20 European projects that run at the moment, and some that are or have just finished. So if I can be of any help to make any of these connections that you're interested in, to share or present your data together or whatever, then please reach out. Would also like to especially ask DEFENSEFOOD if they are interested in also presenting a poster on the project in Dublin in May. A number of the projects in the cluster are presenting their projects there. So if you are interested, then we can take that offline later. Thank you.
Thank you, Saskia.
Thank you. Just a quick reaction that, yeah, certainly we are interested. So thank you very much.
Very nice to hear that. And you can find in the chat the LinkedIn account of the cluster. Feel free to join and send us messages. And I don't know if we have any more questions. No, I don't see any hands. So I would like to thank you all for your participation today and our experts for their insightful contributions. I think today's discussion clearly shows that food security requires a holistic approach. And I would like to wish you a happy afternoon to everybody, and we will see you soon because this is going to be a series of events. We would like to kindly ask you to follow us. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Natasha.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Many thanks.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks, Natasha.